It was just after midnight when I heard it. A voice. Soft, urgent, my daughter's voice. She was in the hallway, her phone pressed tight against her ear, whispering words that pierced through the silence of our home. I was supposed to be asleep. The house was supposed to be still. But when you've lived with someone your whole life, you can feel when something shifts. When the air thickens with a truth it can no longer hide. I'll tell you everything tomorrow. Just don't tell anyone yet. Her words froze me in bed. I stayed absolutely still, my hand clutching the blanket like it could shield me from whatever I was about to hear. My heart hammered in my chest. She didn't sound like my little girl anymore. She sounded like someone with a secret, a dangerous one. I turned my head slightly, careful not to make the bed creak, and caught the faint glow of her silhouette through the crack in her door. Her voice trembled. She wasn't gossiping with a friend. She wasn't venting about school. This was different. And then I heard it. I don't think he's really my dad. My stomach dropped. The clock ticked once, twice. The words slammed into me so hard, I thought the air had been sucked out of the room. I wanted to sit up, storm into her room, demand she explain. But my body wouldn't move. It was as though my soul had been nailed to the mattress. Who was she talking to? Why would she say that? And how could she possibly believe it? The stranger's voice on the other end was muffled, low. I couldn't make out the words. But my daughter's replies were sharp enough to carve me open. She said she'd been suspicious for a while, that things never added up, that Mom doesn't want me to know the truth. Mom. Me. I gripped the blanket tighter. My throat burned with questions I couldn't ask. If I spoke now, if I revealed I was listening, the fragile thread between us might snap. So I stayed still, listening to my daughter unravel the family I had spent decades protecting. After a few more minutes, the hallway went quiet. Her door clicked shut. Silence fell heavy again, but I couldn't close my eyes, couldn't sleep, because I knew that whisper would echo for the rest of my life. I slipped out of bed hours later, my body heavy, my mind racing. The kitchen clock showed 3:17 a.m. I sat at the table, staring at the empty chair where my daughter always had breakfast. The chair looked different now, colder. Was she telling the truth? Was there something I had buried so deep that even I had convinced myself it wasn't real anymore? I pressed my palm against my chest, as though I could hold myself together before the crack split wide open. So, before you get too comfortable, I whispered into the silence, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I'm sharing here. And please, comment where you're watching from. I want to know how far this story will travel, because right now, I feel like I'm drifting farther from the only home I've ever known. I took a shaky breath and looked down at my trembling hands. Whatever tomorrow brought, one thing was clear. My daughter wasn't keeping secrets anymore. She was ready to tear them into the open, and I wasn't ready for the stranger who would soon enter our lives. The next day, I couldn't shake it. Her whisper, the way she said, I don't think he's really my dad. It replayed in my mind like a broken record, every word cutting deeper. I tried to act normal at breakfast. She sat across from me, scrolling her phone, tapping the screen like nothing had changed. Her hair fell into her face, hiding her expression. I wanted to ask. I wanted to scream. Instead, I just pushed scrambled eggs around my plate, pretending my world wasn't tilting. Everything okay? I finally asked, my voice softer than I intended. Yeah, she said, without looking up. Just one word, short, final. But daughters don't fool mothers. Her tone was wrong, her shoulders stiff. She was hiding something, and now I knew it had teeth. Hours later, I decided I couldn't wait. If she wouldn't tell me, I'd find out myself. So I followed her. That evening, she left the house saying she was meeting a friend for a school project. Her words slid out too smoothly. I grabbed my coat and, heart pounding, trailed her from a distance. The sky was gray, heavy with the smell of rain. She walked quickly, her hood up, until she reached the edge of town, an old coffee shop I hadn't been inside in years. My chest tightened when she opened the door and stepped in. I slipped inside a moment later, blending into the crowd, careful to keep my distance. And then I saw him. A man, maybe mid-40s, sitting at the corner table, neatly dressed, calm eyes. And when my daughter slid into the chair across from him, her face softened in a way I hadn't seen in months. She smiled. He leaned forward, resting his hands on the table. "I'm glad you came." His voice was low but steady, and I felt it like a strike to the chest. My daughter nodded, her fingers twisting nervously around her coffee cup. I need to know." The man looked at her carefully. Then he reached into his bag and placed something on the table. A small box. White, slim. I knew what it was before I even saw the letters. A DNA kit. My stomach lurched. "You don't have to do this if you're not ready," he said gently. "But if you are, we'll know the truth." I gripped the back of a chair to keep myself standing. My daughter's hand hovered over the box. She didn't push it away. She didn't laugh it off. She let her fingers rest on top of it, like she'd been waiting for this moment. "Are you sure?" she whispered. The man gave a faint smile. "If I wasn't sure, I wouldn't be here. I've carried this question for years. You deserve answers." And then it happened. She looked at him with eyes I recognized, eyes that mirrored my own. And she said the word that shattered me completely. "Dad?" It wasn't loud, it wasn't even firm, but it was enough. Enough to break whatever fragile wall I'd built around the truth. I stumbled back, nearly knocking into another customer. My hands were shaking, my pulse wild. I couldn't listen anymore, couldn't breathe in that room. I rushed outside into the rain, gulping the damp air as though it might drown out what I'd just heard. She called him Dad. And he didn't correct her. I clutched the railing, my tears mixing with the storm. There was no pretending anymore. The secret I had buried all these years was clawing its way to the surface, and my daughter was the one bringing it to life. I never thought the past would come back like this. Not through my daughter's whispers, not through a man carrying a DNA kit, but standing in the rain outside that cafe, my body trembling, I realized the night I had spent years burying had finally clawed its way out. It was more than 15 years ago. My marriage wasn't perfect. No marriage is. But that year had been brutal. My husband worked long hours, coming home late with stress dripping off his shoulders like sweat. We fought constantly. About money. About parenting. About things that didn't even matter. Until they suddenly did. And then, one night, after another argument that left me feeling small and unseen, I left. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't think twice. I just walked out into the night air, searching for escape. I ended up at a friend's gathering. Music played too loud. Drinks kept pouring. Laughter spun around me. I should have gone home. I should have thought of my husband, of my baby girl sleeping in her crib. But that night, I thought only of my bruised pride and aching heart. And that's when it happened. A man. A mistake. A single night where my anger burned hotter than my loyalty. A night I swore I'd erase before dawn even broke. I told myself it meant nothing, that I'd never speak of it again, that no one would ever know. I buried it deep, convincing myself my daughter was my husband's child. That love was enough to silence doubt. But as the years passed, little shadows grew in the back of my mind. A look here, a gesture there. My husband never said anything, but sometimes I caught him staring at her too long, as if searching for himself in her face. Now, after all these years, I was watching my daughter smile at a man who might be proof that my secret was never truly buried. When I finally came home from the cafe that night, my husband was waiting in the living room. The TV flickered silently, shadows stretching across his face. He didn't ask where I'd been. He just looked at me, steady and unblinking, and said, "Did you know?" My throat went dry. "Know what?" His jaw tightened. About her. About him. The room tilted. He knew, maybe not everything, but enough. Enough to know something was wrong. I I started, but my voice cracked. He leaned forward, his eyes sharp. Don't lie to me. Not anymore. Do you think I haven't wondered all these years? Do you think I haven't seen the way she looks at me sometimes? Like I'm a stranger in my own home? Tears blurred my vision. She is your daughter, I whispered. She's ours. No matter what, she's ours. But even as I said it, I felt the weakness in my words. Because part of me, the part I'd tried to kill, knew the truth might be different. That night, lying awake beside him in the suffocating silence, I finally admitted it to myself. One mistake, one night, could unravel everything I had built. And now, it was happening. My daughter's search for answers wasn't just about identity. It was about exposing the cracks I had tried to plaster over for nearly 2 decades. And I wasn't sure my family would survive what came next. The next morning, the air in the house felt different. Heavy. My husband didn't greet me with his usual quiet nod over coffee. He didn't even look up when I entered the kitchen. He just sat there, rigid, a box resting on the table between his hands. I knew instantly that box wasn't new. It looked old, edges worn, the lid slightly dented, like it had been opened and closed too many times. "Sit down," he said, his voice calm but flat. I obeyed, my heart pounding. He slid the box toward me. My hands shook as I lifted the lid. Inside were documents, photographs, even a folded letter with my name written in his handwriting. My chest tightened. "These," he said quietly, "I've kept for years." Ever since that night I froze. My throat felt like sandpaper. He didn't have to explain which night. We both knew. He pointed at the papers. A DNA test I had done when she was a toddler. Guardianship papers in case. His voice faltered, but he swallowed hard and continued. In case I wasn't her father. The room spun. My husband, my steady, unshakable partner, had carried this doubt all along. "You knew?" I whispered. His eyes glistened, but he didn't look away. I suspected. From the moment she was born, I tried to ignore it. But the doubt grew too loud. I sent in a test once, years ago. The results weren't conclusive, and I told myself that was enough. That love was stronger than blood. But deep down, I knew I covered my mouth with my hands. Tears slid down my cheeks. He had known. All these years. And yet, he stayed. He raised her. He called her his daughter every single day. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Because I didn't want to lose you," he said, his jaw trembling. "And because I thought maybe, just maybe, if we didn't speak of it, it would disappear. That she would never ask. That we could be a family without the shadow of that night hanging over us." I looked down at the documents again. His sacrifice, his silence, his heartbreak, all neatly folded in a box hidden in the back of a closet, waiting for the day the truth came clawing out. "Do you hate me?" I whispered. His gaze softened, and for a moment I saw the man who once held me through storms, who once whispered promises in the dark. "I don't hate you. I hate what you did. I hate that it's here, between us. But I stayed because I loved you. I still do, though I don't know if love is enough anymore." I buried my face in my hands, sobbing. My daughter's voice from the night before echoed in my ears. "I don't think he's really my dad." And now I knew. She was right to question. But the cruelest twist? The man who had raised her, loved her, protected her, knew the truth all along. I lifted my head and whispered through tears, "What do we do now?" My husband's silence was heavier than any answer. The silence between us stretched into days. My husband and I moved around the house like strangers, sharing the same roof, the same meals, but not the same heart. My daughter noticed. Of course she did. She began spending more and more time outside, slipping away with excuses that grew thinner by the day. I wanted to stop her, to pull her close and tell her the truth myself. But every time I opened my mouth, my husband's gaze silenced me. His eyes said, "Not yet. Not like this." But secrets have a way of leaking. It started with a phone call from his mother. Her voice was sharp, cold, as if she had been waiting for this day. "Is it true?" she demanded. I hesitated. "What do you mean?" "Don't play games with me," she snapped. "I heard whispers." That she might not even be his child. That you— Her words cut off, heavy with disgust. I froze. Who told her? My daughter? The man in the cafe? Or someone else entirely? "I don't know what you've heard," I whispered, fighting tears. "But please, don't spread this." "Not now." Her answer was a cruel laugh. "You should have thought of that before." Then she hung up. That was just the beginning. By the end of the week, his sister stopped answering my messages. Friends canceled dinners without explanation. And then, one evening, my daughter showed me her phone. A screenshot. A message from an unknown number. "Ask your father about the money. Ask about the charity funds." The blood drained from my face. This wasn't just about paternity anymore. Someone wanted more. My daughter looked at me with wide, frightened eyes. "Mom, what's going on?" I tried to play dumb, to shield her. "People talk, sweetheart. Don't believe everything you see," but she didn't buy it. She never had my husband's patience for silence. "This isn't gossip, Mom." "They know something, and I think you do too." Her voice cracked at the edges. My heart broke hearing it. Later that night, I confronted my husband. "They're coming for us," I whispered. "This isn't just about her. Someone's digging deeper." He pressed his hands to his face, groaning. "I know." "What do you mean, you know?" His silence was the heaviest confession of all. I realized then that the storm tearing us apart wasn't just my secret. He had his own. And if someone out there wanted to expose it, we were about to lose more than our family. We were about to lose everything. The first message was bad enough. But the second one, that one nearly stopped my heart. It arrived late at night, just as I was shutting down the kitchen lights. My daughter's phone buzzed on the counter. She'd left it charging. Normally, I wouldn't have touched it. But after everything, I couldn't help myself. The screen lit up with the words, "Tell her about the missing charity funds." Or, "We will." My blood went cold. Missing funds? Charity? Before I could process it, my daughter walked in, hair still damp from her shower. She saw me staring at the phone and snatched it up. Her eyes were wide, her face pale. "Mom," she whispered, "who would send this?" I couldn't answer, because the truth was, I had no idea. The next morning, she shoved the phone in my husband's face. "What is this about? Why are people saying you stole from a charity?" His reaction told me everything. He didn't deny it. He didn't even look surprised. He just sat there, jaw clenched, eyes shut tight like he'd been waiting for this moment. My daughter gasped. "It's true, isn't it?" He opened his eyes slowly, meeting mine instead of hers. "It's complicated." Complicated. The word was a knife. I followed him into the study after she stormed off. My hands shook as I slammed the door shut. "What did you do?" He rubbed his temples. "I didn't steal it. I borrowed it." The company was struggling, and I needed to keep things afloat. I thought I could replace it before anyone noticed my knees went weak. "How much?" He hesitated, then whispered, "Hundreds of thousands." I staggered back, covering my mouth. "You've destroyed us," I said, voice trembling. He looked at me with weary eyes. "I was trying to protect us." Protect her future. I thought it was temporary, but when the first gap appeared, I filled it with another. And then another. Until it was too late to stop, I wanted to scream, to claw at him, to tell him he was no better than me with my secret. But the words stuck in my throat because the truth was staring me in the face. We were both guilty, both liars. And now, whoever was sending those messages, they knew. That night, another text arrived. This time, not just to her phone, to mine. "Tell the truth, or we will." The air in the house grew suffocating. Every ding of a notification made us flinch. Every shadow outside the window felt like an intruder. My daughter stopped sleeping. My husband stopped eating. I stopped believing we could hold this together, because it was no longer a matter of if the truth came out. It was only when. The man from the cafe didn't disappear. In fact, he showed up again, this time at our front gate. I spotted him from the upstairs window, leaning casually against the iron fence as if he belonged there. My daughter was already outside, walking toward him, her face a mixture of fear and hope. My husband stood frozen beside me, fists clenched so tight his knuckles turned white. "I'll handle this," he muttered, storming down the stairs. I followed, my pulse hammering, terrified of what would happen when two worlds collided. When my husband reached the gate, the man straightened, calm as ever. "I didn't come here to fight," he said, voice measured. "I came to talk." "To talk?" my husband spat. "You've been poisoning my daughter with lies, and now you're standing on my property?" The man's eyes didn't flinch. "She came to me." She asked questions. I gave her answers. My daughter's voice broke in. "Dad!" She stopped, looked at both men, then whispered, "Or should I even say that?" The silence that followed was a wound splitting open. The man finally said, "I could have forced this years ago." But I didn't, because this isn't just about blood, it's about truth. And she deserves it. My husband's voice dropped, low and dangerous. "You're not her father." The man gave a faint smile. "Maybe not the one who raised her, but maybe the one who gave her life." Then he turned his gaze directly to me. "You know which is true, don't you?" My breath caught. My daughter's eyes swung toward me, burning with a question I had spent years avoiding. I wanted to scream no. I wanted to deny it. But the guilt in my silence spoke louder than any words. The man exhaled softly. "I'm not here to ruin your family. But there's more you need to know. This." He gestured at the house, the tension, the fear. "This isn't just about her parentage. It's about what's been buried." My husband's face hardened. "What are you talking about?" The man reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a thin envelope. "I'm working with someone who has evidence about the charity funds. The missing money, the mismanaged accounts." My knees went weak. My husband's eyes flared with rage. "You came here," he growled, "pretending this is about family." "But this is blackmail." The man shook his head slowly. "No, this is exposure, and I suggest you get ahead of it before others do." He placed the envelope on the fence post and walked away, leaving us standing in silence, staring at the thin white paper that now carried the weight of everything we'd been hiding. My daughter turned to me, her voice trembling. "Mom, is he lying? Or is there something you both haven't told me?" I couldn't answer, because in that moment, I realized the truth. This wasn't only about who her father was. It was about the empire of lies we had all built, and how quickly it was beginning to collapse. 1. The envelope sat on the table between us like a loaded weapon. None of us wanted to touch it. None of us wanted to see what it held, but ignoring it didn't make it disappear. Finally, with a shaking hand, my daughter tore it open. Pages spilled out, printouts of financial ledgers, wire transfers, numbers circled in red ink. Her eyes scanned the papers, growing wider with each line. "Dad," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Is this true?" My husband rubbed his face with both hands, groaning. "It's not what it looks like." Her hand slammed on the table. "Then tell me what it is." He looked up, his eyes bloodshot. "I took money from the charity, but I was going to replace it." I swear the room spun. Hearing him admit it aloud felt like a floor giving way beneath my feet. My daughter shook her head violently. "You stole from sick children. From families who needed help." Her voice broke into sobs. "I didn't steal," he said sharply. "I borrowed." I was desperate. The company was bleeding, and if I didn't act, we would have lost everything. The house, your schooling, all of it. My daughter's face twisted in disgust. "So you saved us by destroying others?" "That's not protection. That's selfishness." I wanted to defend him, to say something, anything, that could soften her words, but the truth clamped around my throat. I knew what he had done. I had seen the cracks. I had chosen silence, just like I had with my own secret. "Do you understand what this means?" I asked quietly, forcing myself to look at him. If this gets out, it's not just your reputation. It's prison. He slammed his fist on the table. I can fix it, he shouted. I just need time. Money will come back in. Investments will pay off. No one has to know, but someone already knew. Someone had sent those messages. Someone had left this envelope at our door. And worst of all, someone was enjoying watching us fall apart. My daughter rose from her chair, trembling. I don't even know who you are anymore. She stormed upstairs, leaving me and my husband in silence. He buried his face in his hands. I was trying to hold us together, he whispered, and instead, I might have destroyed us. For the first time, I saw him not as the strong provider, not as the man who had carried our family through storms, but as a broken figure grasping at lies to stay afloat. And in that moment, I realized, we were both guilty. We had both lied. We had both betrayed the very family we claimed to love. And the truth was finally coming to collect its debt. The first headline hit like a thunderclap. Local charity under fire, missing funds, silent donors, and family secrets. My phone buzzed nonstop with notifications. Friends, neighbors, even distant relatives forwarded me the article as if I hadn't already read it 10 times. The words blurred together. Embezzlement, betrayal, scandal. Our family name, once a pillar of respect, was now a spectacle. My daughter sat hunched over the kitchen table, scrolling through her phone. Every few seconds, the screen lit up with new comments, snide remarks, cruel jokes, strangers debating her life like it was a reality show. Mom, she whispered, her voice shaking. They're sharing my pictures. I hurried to her side. On her screen, I saw her school photos, pulled from old social media accounts. Next to them were captions like, daughter of a thief, and, does she even know who her real dad is? Her face crumpled. I didn't ask for this. I didn't do anything wrong. I pulled her close, but she stiffened in my arms. For the first time, she didn't melt into my embrace. She was pulling away from me too. My husband burst into the room, holding his phone. We can sue them, he barked. This is defamation. They don't have proof, but even as he spoke, his voice cracked. Because we all knew. The proof existed. And sooner or later, more of it would surface. That night, the news spread further. A local station picked up the story, then a national blog. By morning, our family name was trending. People I hadn't spoken to in years were posting cryptic statuses, pretending sympathy while dripping with judgment. At the grocery store, whispers followed me down the aisles. Mothers pulled their children closer. Cashiers avoided my eyes. I had become that woman, the one tied to scandal, the one whose life had turned into public entertainment. But the cruelest blow wasn't from strangers. It came from my daughter's classmates. She came home from school with tear-stained cheeks, clutching her backpack like a shield. They printed out the article, she sobbed. They taped it to my locker. They circled the words, not really his daughter. I felt rage boil inside me. I wanted to storm into that school, tear down those papers, scream at every parent who let their child mock mine. But I couldn't protect her anymore. Not from this. She looked at me through her tears, her voice trembling. Mom, is it true? Am I not his? My mouth opened, but no words came out. Because the truth was no longer just ours. The world had already begun answering for us. And once the internet smells blood, it never stops feeding. The envelope arrived 2 days later. No return address. Just our family name scrawled in black ink across the front. I should have thrown it away. Burned it. Pretended it didn't exist. But my daughter was the one who grabbed it off the porch. She tore it open before I could stop her. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Clinical. Cold. A DNA report. Her hands shook as she read it. It says, "He's my biological father." The man from the cafe. Her voice cracked on the word father. She looked at me, her face crumpling like paper. "You lied to me my whole life." "I didn't lie," I whispered, reaching for her. She jerked away. "You let me believe something that wasn't true." "That's the same thing," I stumbled back, my chest heaving. My husband stood in the doorway, his face pale, his eyes hollow. For years, he had carried this silent fear, and now it was written in black and white. Confirmed. Unshakable. "You knew," she whispered to him, her voice trembling. "Didn't you?" He didn't answer. His silence was louder than any confession. My daughter's tears spilled over. So my whole life has been a lie. Who even am I? I reached for her again, desperate. "You're mine. You're still my daughter. That hasn't changed." But she shook her head, clutching the paper like a weapon. "Blood doesn't lie. You both did." She ran upstairs, the slam of her door echoing through the house like a gunshot. I turned to my husband, my own tears burning hot. "I thought we could protect her. That if we just held on, it wouldn't matter." He laughed bitterly, but there was no humor in it. "Protect her? You think this is protection? You've destroyed her. You've destroyed us." The words sliced me open. Later that night, I found him in the study, the DNA report spread out on the desk beside a stack of old documents. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Preparing," he said flatly, "because this isn't just about her. My family's already circling. They'll use this against us, against me, against everything I've built, your family?" I asked, horrified. He looked up at me, his face cold. "Do you think they'll accept her now? Do you think they'll accept you? They've been waiting for this, waiting to strip everything away. And now they finally have their proof." The report lay between us, sharp as glass. One piece of paper, and it had cut through every fragile thread holding our family together. The summons arrived on a gray morning, tucked between bills and advertisements. My husband opened it in silence, his face draining of color as he read. Then he shoved the papers toward me. It was from his own family. They were contesting his position in the company, challenging the will of his late father, and, worst of all, using the DNA results as ammunition. By the time we stepped into the courthouse, whispers followed us like a second shadow. Reporters crowded the steps, shouting questions about stolen funds and illegitimate children. Cameras flashed, freezing our shame into permanent images. Inside, the fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, cold and merciless. We sat at the long wooden table, my husband gripping the edge so tightly I thought the wood might splinter. Across from us, his mother and siblings wore expressions like sharpened knives. The lawyer began reading aloud. The words tasted like ash in my mouth. Questions of paternity, breach of trust, misappropriation of funds. Every secret, every mistake, was laid bare for strangers to dissect. My daughter sat behind me, trembling. I reached for her hand, but she pulled it back, clutching her phone like it was the only anchor left. Then came the clause, a post-nuptial agreement I had nearly forgotten. My husband's father had written it years ago, buried in a sea of paperwork. If paternity of heirs is ever disputed, assets may be reallocated. The words were clinical, but the meaning was brutal. My daughter's entire place in the family, her inheritance, her identity, was being erased by a legal footnote. "She doesn't belong here," his sister said coolly, her voice echoing in the room. "She is not one of us." And she never was, my husband shot to his feet, fury blazing in his eyes. "She is my daughter, not by blood," his mother snapped. "And blood is what this family is built on." The judge rapped the gavel sharply. But the damage was done. My daughter's eyes filled with tears. She fled the courtroom, leaving me torn between chasing after her and standing beside the man who still, despite everything, was my husband. I stayed, because if I left him now, I feared he'd crumble completely. When the hearing ended, nothing was resolved. Just more dates set, more knives sharpened. But I could already see the verdict written between the lines. This wasn't going to end with truth or fairness. It was going to end with destruction. And mercy? Mercy had no seat in that courtroom. The house was silent when I returned from the courthouse. Too silent. My daughter's door stayed locked, her music turned up just loud enough to warn me away. My husband retreated into his study, drowning in documents, muttering about appeals and lawyers. I sat in the kitchen, staring at the stack of unopened mail, when the phone buzzed. It was my sister. "Come over," she said. Her voice was tight, urgent. I drove across town, my heart pounding the whole way. When she opened the door, she didn't hug me. She didn't smile. She just gestured for me to follow her into the living room. "I need to tell you something," she said. Her hands were shaking. I braced myself. She sat down across from me, her eyes darting to the floor. "The DNA kit, the one that showed up for your daughter." She swallowed hard. "I sent it." The words slammed into me like a punch. "You what?" My voice came out as a rasp. She lifted her chin, though her face was pale. "I mailed it months ago. I thought you deserved freedom, that she deserved truth. You've been living under this lie for years, and it's poisoned everything. I wanted to force it into the open before it destroyed you." My throat tightened. "Destroyed me? Look around. It's destroying all of us." Her voice cracked. "You think I don't know that? But I was tired of watching you suffer, tired of watching him control everything, while you carried secrets alone. I thought if she knew, if everyone knew, you'd finally be free." "Free?" I whispered. "You call this free?" "My daughter hates me. My husband's family wants to erase her. The whole world is laughing at us, and you—" I choked back tears. "You put the knife in our hands." She flinched but didn't deny it. "Maybe I did. But I'll say it again. Secrets rot families. And maybe this one was always meant to shatter." I stood there trembling, staring at the sister I had trusted all my life. Her betrayal felt colder than the headlines, sharper than the courtroom insults. Because she wasn't an enemy, she was blood, and she had turned the blade quietly, believing it was mercy. When I walked out of her house, the sky was dark. My phone buzzed with new alerts. Another article, another blow. But all I could hear was her voice, steady and unapologetic. "I mailed it. I wanted you free, and all I could think was, sometimes freedom feels like falling,